once again, rather welcome everyone who's here this morning, joining us in the Berman Reuben for the second day Rosh Hashanah services, and also welcoming all those who are joining us online, watching the services as well. Is a unique experience of Rosh Hashanah for many of us, if not all of us, but I hope an experience that is meaningful and filled with all of the sweet things that we hope to find at the beginning of the new year and throughout the new year. We should only share sweet things together. You know, in past years, I have often, on this second day of Rosh Hashanah, talked with you about baseball and the many lessons that sublime sport contains about life. But, you know, given the Orioles' struggles this year, and also, I mean, full disclosure, the miserable August record compiled by my beloved New York Mets, I felt like I should just try to stay away from baseball. It's probably in everyone's best interest. So with your permission, I'm going to switch my topic this morning and spend a few minutes thinking with you about rock and roll, which is something that, at least in my opinion, never disappoints, unlike the Mets and the Orioles, and always, also, again, in my opinion, raises the spirit. Now, if you are a fan of rock and roll, particularly classic rock and roll, which is sort of my genre, you know that the great stars are getting up in years these days, okay? So anyone know how old Bob Dylan is? 80. Bob Dylan is 80 years old. Yep. Paul McCartney, 79. I heard somebody say it. Still making new music, by the way. Dylan just released one of his best reviewed albums. It's 80 years old. McCartney at 79. I hate to even tell you Fleetwood Mac fans out there this, but Stevie Nicks, 73. Stevie Nicks is 73. In early August, Becky and I went to see Twin Bill, Jackson Browne, and James Taylor playing at Merriweather. I know a number of you were there. It was a wonderful, wonderful show. Two of my favorite artists, James Taylor particularly. James Taylor is 73, like Stevie Nicks. Jackson Browne, 72. So he's like the kid, right? And even Bruce Springsteen is now in his 70s, believe it or not. Bruce Friedman, how old is Bruce Springsteen? Do you know? He's 71. Springsteen is 71, yep. And in my band, the Grateful Dead, the original members are now 80, 77, 75, and 73. 80, 77, 75, and 73. Now, of course, none of them have anything on Tony Bennett, okay? If you follow the news, I'm sure you know that that great, great crooner retired from touring this summer, from performing this summer. He was, anybody remember? 95 years old. For 70 years, he had been performing live shows, Tony Bennett. For 70 years, he went out on a high, performing sold-out shows at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. If you've ever been at a spectacular venue, sits about 5,000, I think 5,300 or something like this. So here's Tony Bennett. He's 95. He's selling out Radio City Music Hall to 5,300 people a night. He was doing it with Lady Gaga, sort of his partner in crime and creativity, something like that. So you have to say that Tony Bennett is the leader of the pack at 95. But all of these stars, well into their 70s or 80s, are still active and creative and vital, and honestly, many of them still at the top of their game. It's really remarkable. Now, it is true that many of them, if not all of them, have switched their less savory past habits, okay, for newer habits. Like now, most of them are on macrobiotic diets, and they have daily workout regimens that they follow. But I also think there's something else going on here. In other words, it's not just about body. It's also about soul. It's about spirit. And we might say it like this. As the years have gone by, and for those stars, they have gone by. As the years have gone by, they have all figured out how to do something that might be one of the most important keys in living a full and a good life. They have managed to grow, to age, without growing old. Without growing old. Now, we could say, by the way, the very same thing about Abraham and Sarah, about whom we've been reading from the Torah these last couple of days. You know, we do not often talk about this, but lost in the dramatic events of all of the Rosh Hashanah Torah readings, and there are many dramatic events, the binding of Isaac probably the most dramatic of all, but many dramatic events. Lost in all of it is Abraham and Sarah's age when all of this is going on. But we were told in yesterday's Torah reading exactly how old Abraham was during yesterday's events when Isaac was born. V'Avraham ben me'at shanim behivaled lo et Yitzchak beno. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Anyone know how old Sarah was? Somebody actually mentioned it this morning. She was 90, so Abraham 100, Sarah is 90 when Isaac's born. I'm not sure which age is more impressive given the circumstances, but that's what the Torah tells us, okay? So Abraham and Sarah, at those ages, were in one of the most active and productive periods of their lives. They were traveling constantly. They were running a large household. Sarah was clearly feisty and ran a tight ship on the home front. Abraham's hiking to the top of mountains, okay, at 100 years old. They were taking care of young children, by the way, and grandparents tell me, grandparents who babysit their young grandchildren tell me that takes quite a bit of energy, I understand. So most importantly of all about Abraham and Sarah, at the age of 190, they were creating Judaism. They were creating Judaism. The covenant that exists between God and the Jewish people that all of us and Jews across the country and Jews all over the world these last 2 days have reaffirmed, yes, we are members of that covenant. Like the rock stars, Abraham and Sarah seem to have discovered the secret of growing in wisdom, in vitality, in strength, in depth of soul, without growing old. So what is the secret sauce? Listen, I know you all still think I'm a kid, okay? But I'm 57 now, okay? So I'm curious, what is the secret sauce that enables someone to do that? Now, if you want to know, you might ask Lucille Goldberg, who's sitting right. Lucille, just raise your hand up for a sec. There's Lucille over there. A couple of weeks ago, Lucille had an aliyah to the Torah. For those of you who were in shul that morning, she strode up to the microphone, said the blessings in a clear and strong voice. She smiled. I think she a little bit enjoyed being in front of the congregation, actually, and enjoyed even more the fact that her son Howard was reading Torah that day. Lucille is 101 years old. And yes, she has been blessed with incredible good fortune, and yes, she has been blessed with good health, but it is her attitude. It is her attitude about fully embracing every single day of life. It's her attitude about loving her family. It's her attitude about being Jewish, being involved and connected to a congregation. It's her spunk and her spirit. It also doesn't hurt. Lucille makes an unbelievably delicious kugel, I can tell you, from personal experience. But if you want to know what it looks like when someone continues to grow throughout their whole life, she's still growing. She's 101. If you want to know what that looks like, look at Lucille. The problem is this, you see, that as the years come and go, they can wear us down. They can wear us down. You know, cynicism can creep in. You get disappointed with choices that you've made, achievements that you failed to achieve. Days for some people can become burdens instead of blessings. Our hearts can grow angry, we get bitter, relationships can sour. In the course of a single year, forget a whole lifetime. But if we could figure out how to embrace the years as they come, talk about one after another, after another without letting those years wear away at our hearts and our souls, then maybe we have a chance to live with vitality and strength and courage and hope and generosity for others. In the course of our years, we could learn wisdom and an even deeper appreciation for God's world, its beauty, and our place and role in it. You know, I think most people sort of instinctively understand the difference that I'm trying to describe this morning, the difference between growing old in years on the one hand, or growing through those years in insight and creativity and depth. But we should not allow ourselves to be deceived that we can solve that problem of growing old with things, with material things. I think we too often try to do that. A new car, for example, is not going to help. Okay? It's been tried many times. Changing the clothes that you wear, trying to dress young or something, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference. But if we can learn to collect experiences and not material things, if we can cultivate relationships that are personal and not transactional, right? If we can give freely to others and stop worrying so much about what we get out of it, if we can, I love the great words of the prophet Micah, if we can just do justice and love kindness and walk humbly in God's presence, then I think we have a pretty good chance of aging well and wisely without ever growing old. Listen, I started with rock and roll. I feel obligated to finish with it as well. So back to rock and roll. One more example also of a person who I think figured out how to grow through life without ever growing old. Inga Ginsburg. She died this summer. She was 99 when she passed away. Not a famous person. You may not recognize her name. Anybody recognize her name? Yeah, a couple people in the back. Yeah. She lived a remarkable life. She was a Holocaust survivor and managed with her family to escape from Vienna to Switzerland just as the war was beginning. In her adult life, she married 3 times, very spunky woman, married 3 times. She lived in New York, she lived in Tel Aviv, she lived in LA, she lived in Zurich, other places as well. During the Second World War, she helped American spies fighting the Nazis. She wrote songs in Hollywood in the course of her life and invested in the stock market. She did well, by the way. She did quite well. She ran a luxury hotel in Tel Aviv for a number of years as well. Inga Ginsburg. So you may say, that's nice, Rabbi. Where's the rock and roll, right? It's a fair question. In her 90s, mid-90s, Mrs. Ginsburg got into rock and roll. She was the front person and the singer for a band called Inga and the Tritones. Inga and the Tritones, yeah. Now, this was not just a rock and roll band. It was hard rock. It was heavy metal. I'm not making this up. So after Yontif tonight, look her up on YouTube, Inga and the Tritones. You will not believe what you find there. You'll see Mrs. Ginsburg dressed in this, she's like 93, dressed in this elegant black evening gown. She's got the pearls on and pearl earrings, and the hair is done. And she's singing, standing in front of 4 bandmates of hers, all of whom, probably in their 30s, banging on their instruments the way only heavy metal musicians can do it. It is something to see. It is something to see. Now, she wrote lyrics to the band. She was the lyricist. She wrote the lyrics to all the band songs. And one particular song caught my attention. And it actually touches on her experience in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. And Mrs. Ginsburg, in that song, again in her 90s, in front of that band, sings, "All my life, I fought for freedom and peace. All my life, I fought for freedom and peace." And then in the last chorus, towards the very end of the song, Inga Ginsburg at 93 screams over this driving heavy metal music, "I'm still here. I'm still here. I am still here. You know, we all hope to be blessed with the gift of a long life. It's one of the things we pray for on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Sefer HaChaim, right? Sefer HaChaim. But whatever the number of our years, I'd like to think that each and every one of us has the ability to live in the spirit of an Abraham or a Sarah or a Lucille Goldberg or an Inga Ginsburg, to discover understanding and appreciation for our own life's journey. Who are we? Where are we going? To have a sense of insight and love for each and every member of our family. To live with generosity. Generosity for those who accompany us on the path of our lives, and to always keep our dreams of a bright future for those who will follow behind us. They'll need those dreams. So as we enter into a new year, it's a new year of life, Rosh Hashanah. May we continue to grow in our lives, in patience, kindness, strength, hope, love, and shalom and peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May that be God's will. Shana Tova.